okay, are they biomechanically efficient for the actual sport? Do they have the proper endurance? Do they have the mental capacity to withstand these types of stressful situations? And when you have all that together, especially when you have an opponent right next to you, let's say it's a one-on-one with the UFC, these guys that have that mental fortitude, that know how to take it to the next level and block out the noise, they become the elite.
All right, guys, we're out here in West Palm. I got Phil Daru here today, one of the best trainers in the world. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, your knowledge is immense, so I can't wait to get to learn how you got to this level, man, for real.
Yeah, man, it's been 15 years in the making.
Yeah. Was it always a goal of yours to become a trainer?
Yeah, I mean, I've always trained. You know, I've trained since I was, say, 12 years old. Started doing resistance training, but martial arts since I was 4 years old. So I kind of merged myself into that. I was a college football player, then started to do mixed martial arts, ended up becoming a pro there. And then I just I could see myself doing this long term. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be an athlete for the rest of my life. I can be athletic, but I wanted to give back, and that was the biggest thing. And when I made that decision to do that, you know, hockey stick from there.
Nice. And you train all sports. It's not just one sport, right?
Yeah, I mean, I made my niche in combat sports, but we just got it done with the NFL offseason, guys. So I'm looking forward to watching them on the gridiron. So it'll be cool. You know, I do have a football background, which was good for me to make that transition to like work with other athletes too as well. It gives me more diversity in a lot of ways that I coach and communicate to as well.
Right. How different is the training with NFL guys versus fighters?
You know, at any elite level, these guys are in the NFL, and the guys that I work with in the UFC, they always have this sense of urgency and discipline. And the other thing that we want to look at also is how well they can take, let's say, what I give them and put it into practice, right? How can they put it into play, and how coachable are they? So with that, I'm looking at how well they can understand the basics and then take it to the next level, right? So with those individuals, they're disciplined, right? They have good understanding of where they want to go. They know what their weak points are, and they want to make them better. And that's the biggest thing.
Did you see that clip with Shannon Sharp and that receiver about training?
No, what happened?
He told this receiver, I forget who it was, but he said, if you trained as hard as me, you'd be the GOAT.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, no, I like my fast food. I like, you know, certain things.
It's those small little details, man. It's that 1%, honestly. When you get to that level, it go, okay, what is something that is holding you back from being the absolute elite that you can be?
Right.
And a lot of times it comes down to, okay, maybe it's mobility, maybe, you know, it's your overall functionality and how you go about achieving what you need to on a daily basis. And a lot of times I look at athletes as a full spectrum, right? So if I'm looking at them and I'm assessing their abilities, I want to see, okay, are they biomechanically efficient for the actual sport? Do they have the proper endurance? Do they have the mental capacity to withstand these types of stressful situations? And when you have all that together, especially when you have an opponent right next to you, let's say it's a one-on-one with the UFC, these guys that have that mental fortitude, that know how to take it to the next level and block out the noise, they become the elite.
Right. I love how you encompass everything, because a lot of trainers just focus on physical, right? And maybe diet. But you're like, no, let me focus on mental health too.
Yeah, I mean, with fighting, it's important, but in all sports, it's important, right? To have a mental edge, and you have to have the confidence in your abilities in order for you to be the best that you can be.
Right.
And that's where you're going to see what separates the good from the great. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because a lot of people fold in those critical moments. They just shut down. Something mentally goes wrong, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, you know, for me, when I was actually fighting, the times that I lost fights was that I wasn't mentally in there.
Wow.
Right? And you can tell when that cage door closes, it's either, okay, I'm ready to go or I'm not. And you can't call on anybody at that point. That's why fighting in general it's very, it's nerve-wracking, you know, and I think it's primal in a lot of ways too.
Right.
And it becomes something of second nature if you know how to, one, hone in the details, work the game plan and stay consistent with that. And then also from there, do not let those distractions take away from the game. And a lot of times we see that guys are great, you know, in the gym, world beaters in the gym.
Right.
They go into the fight and then, you know, something happens where they don't look the same. It's because they couldn't block out the noise and they couldn't stay the course.
Absolutely. There's fights you probably had where you were more athletic, you were more talented, that you lost.
Absolutely. I lost fights that I should have won based off of focus, you know. And so when I started coaching, I wanted to make sure that I reiterated that to most of the guys.
Yeah.
Now, guys like Dustin Poirier, they're already locked in, right? But there's still times where you have to stay.
This episode of Digital Social Hour is brought to you by BetterHelp. Making it easy and affordable to access online therapy, give it a try at betterhelp.com/DSH and get on your way to being your best self. The holidays are a tricky time of the year for a lot of people, and I like to stay cozy and warm at home with my favorite movies and a warm blanket, and also some BetterHelp. With a lot of time to reflect during the winter months, therapy is a great way to embrace what's on our mind and find comfort that doesn't leave us, even as the holidays fade away. Even if you've never tried therapy or always wondered about its effects, BetterHelp's online therapy option can be a helpful tool to learn about positive coping mechanisms and set boundaries that will aid you in years and events to come. It doesn't just take trauma to make therapy worthwhile, as we want to empower everyone to be the best version of themselves. If you're thinking about therapy, give BetterHelp a try with its online platform designed to be convenient and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist with the freedom to switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find peace and comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/DSH today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DSH.
With them, right? You have to be there, and you have to give them goals to accomplish throughout that camp so that they become more confident in their abilities naturally. They already are skillful, right? They're talented. They wouldn't be at that level. But when you give them something that is not a part of, let's say, for instance, for me with resistance training, for strength training, if I can get them maybe 1% stronger, right? If they increase their 1 rep max by 5%, it may not transfer over physically. It may, also physically, but most importantly, it transfers over mentally.
Right.
So
when did Dustin approach you, and what was that journey like with him?
The first time we talked, I got the job at American Top Team, and we talked for about an hour or two, just because I used to fight a lot in Louisiana. So just shoot stuff like that, and making sure that we started to look at communication appropriately. And I wanted to make sure that he understood what I was about. I would say right after the Michael Johnson fight, he texted me and he goes, "Man, I'm ready to go." And from there on, we had 7 camps together.
Wow.
With 5 years of work. So it's been great, man. He's one of those guys that helped me achieve coaching success and allowed me to be a better coach because of it.
What was did you have any big problems that you were trying to solve? Any metrics?
A lot of time, he's never lifted weights a day in his life.
Really?
Before that. Now, he may have done some things here and there, but he never really strength trained.
Wow.
So getting him stronger, getting him, to understand his body a little bit more, increasing mobility in each joint capsule, giving him the ability to do what he does inside the cage. And that's primarily what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to build a bigger base of structural integrity, of strength, and his ability to correlate that over into the skills that he has.
Yeah.
That was my biggest thing. And a lot of times, with these guys, they have injuries, they have issues each and every day. They come into the gym, and I have to auto-regulate. I have to call an audible because, let's say they kicked an elbow or something along the lines of that, and now the training that I had laid out goes out the window because they can't do the things that I had planned.
Right.
So being able to structure a training session around what could or could not happen, and then from there still progress them with whatever I could do.
That makes sense. For the McGregor fight, were you trying to increase his stamina to try to outlast?
The thing with Dustin and some of these guys, they naturally have great conditioning, right? Their genetic predisposition is endurance. And so he has a high VO2 max. That means, he has high oxygen utilization, so he can utilize oxygen and deliver it. He has the ability to recover in between rounds. My goal was to make sure that he was confident in his abilities from a power production standpoint and being able to have that power throughout all 5 rounds. Mobility too as well on top of that, being able to not only get into positions but be strong in those positions and be strong in those end ranges. If you do, jiu-jitsu and grappling, you understand that you have to be in these contorted kind of weird positions most of the time. But if you're not strong in those positions, you're going to end up getting hurt or injured.
Interesting. Wow. So you got to kind of train in those weird positions, right?
Most of the time, yeah. We want to make sure, one, they have the joint prerequisites to get there, increase that range, and then get stronger in that range.
Yeah, there's been some nasty areas in the UFC where you're stretched all over the place.
Yeah.
And
you can imagine if you get stretched out to that degree and you're not strong enough, you're going to tear something.
right.
And that's where we find most of the non-contact injuries occur too as well. With fighting, you're going to have lacerations, you're going to get concussions, you're going to get bruises, things like that. But the one thing that we can work on inside of a weight room or a physical preparation perspective is to increase their ability to get into these positions and be safe, right? So reduce the risk of injury is the primary focus, especially in camp.
Yeah. With all the new advancements and new knowledge, do you think fighters can fight into their 40s now?
Yes, I don't recommend it. You see more and more of that now. I have guys and girls that still fight well into their 40s.
Wow.
Do I believe in it? If you feel like it's something that you need to do, I'm never going to tell a fighter not to continue fighting, right? Because it's in them. And most of the time, that's all they know. So if that's the case, then I'm going to get them well prepared to do so. The training does change, right? The preparation will definitely alter based upon them being at that age.
Right.
Recoverability is immensely important. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that they're able to maintain their ability to be strong and explosive, because a lot of times when you get older, speed kind of deteriorates.
Yeah.
Your strength and your ability to squeeze from an MMA standpoint kind of stays. Conditioning to a degree will stay, but that speed, right, that explosiveness, that twitchiness kind of starts to dissipate. And that's why we want to make sure that we can continue on with that speed work, continue on with that speed endurance work. And that's how I'll alter it. But again, like I said, it's making sure that they are ready to step in the cage or step in the ring when the time comes.
Right. I wonder why the speed decreases so rapidly, like in your late 20s, 30s, right?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times, like just getting older, athletes stop wanting to do sprinting or speed work or anything like that. The goal for any athlete is to be faster and more explosive than your opponent, right? You play basketball, right? So being able to get down the court, being able to dunk and be explosive from that triple extension, you start to stop doing that getting older. And that's the problem with just people in general. They stop sprinting, they stop jumping,
right.
And then they lose it, right? You don't use it, you lose it. So it's just kind of making sure that they have that ability to do it over and over again and keep putting it into the training process, so they don't lose it.
Yeah, I'm just finding out how important sprinting is, man.
Yeah.
I think it's more important than running.
I mean, sprinting in general, just because of tendon elasticity, especially for your sport too, is basketball. Running is a different, if you're talking about jogging or anything like that, if that's for more cardiovascular endurance, it's obviously going to be good. It's going to be good for blood flow. It's going to be good for just overall longevity and health and wellness. Sprinting, however, from a performance standpoint and also a health standpoint, right, increasing tendon stiffness and elasticity, increasing your ability to have neuromuscular efficiency, being able to explode and redirect and things of that nature, changing direction. A lot of people still don't do that.
Right.
When they get older, they stop, working cut drills and having to absorb and redirect force, right? That's important for everyday use, especially for athletes too.
Yeah, those cut drills. Yeah, I haven't done those in years, man. I remember doing those.
The 5-10-5.
Yeah,
L drills.
man.
Yeah.
What was that one called where you had to sprint, touch the ground, and then
that's
back?
the 5-10-5.
Oh, that's the 5-10-5.
Yeah, or
okay.
the agility, like the 5-10-5 agility, shuttle test, another one. The L drill is another one. Just being able to absorb force and then redirect it is very important.
How much importance are you placing on the supplement side?
I am. I mean, a lot of times now athletes, obviously I'm going to go with nutrition first, whole foods before anything. But nowadays it's very hard to find whole nutritious foods, right? So if they don't have something that's, that's organic, that's grass-fed, that's, locally raised in a lot of ways, especially out here, you're in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's tough out there.
It's tough. For us, if I can't get the nutrients from food, I'm going to supplement that. And that's why it's called supplements. So we need to make sure that we have that. Anything that's going to be supplemented is going to be something that's going to help them, not just from a performance standpoint, but from a health and longevity standpoint. So omega-3s, a standard multivitamin, it will always be good. I like creatine monohydrate too as well. It has been shown through recent studies and studies in the past that it does help with traumatic brain injury. So it can reduce that too as well. So we like to have them take 2 to 5 grams after every sparring session too as well.
Smart. I need to start taking that. I had a TBI on the brain scan I just took.
Really?
Yeah.
I've had 8 concussions, man.
So you got
we were
one
loading
too.
up. Yeah, we were loading up.
Have you physically noticed like signs of brain damage from those?
Well, I played football since I was 7, and I think that accumulation of all those, obviously taking the proper precautions, making sure that I'm taking omega-3s, right? I'm taking things that are going to bring down inflammation, and then also creatine monohydrate too as well. Now I'm pretty solid.
Oh,
but
nice.
This was probably around, I was 25, so this was somewhere around 2014, 2015, and I was trying to go back for my PhD, and I wasn't grasping what they were saying. And so I was like, man, let me go check out what's going on. Went to a neurologist, and they said, man, if you don't stop fighting, you're gonna have Alzheimer's by the time you're 50.
Holy crap.
So I got, I was like, damn. And I was still a professional fighter.
Right.
My son was about to be born, and I called Dean Thomas, and he was just like, listen, if you don't stop, it's not like it's your knee or even your back, it's your brain. You really don't want to mess with that. And since I was successful in coaching and I had a good business running, I was like, you know what? It took me 2 weeks to really make up my mind.
Yeah.
If I'm going to leave the sport, stop training, or stop competing at least, and go about actually going full go into coaching. And I think that was the best thing for me. I'm going to say, yes, it was the best thing for me, because I was able to focus now on one particular aspect of my life, which at that point, from a professional standpoint, it was coaching, as opposed to trying to be an athlete and coach at the same time.
It's hard to do 2 things at the same time.
Especially when you're trying to do it at the highest level.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now, for me now, I still train, right? I still do jiu-jitsu, I still, kickboxing, Muay Thai, but I'm not competing for anything at that level, right? I'm not competing as it is my profession.
Right.
My focus is on my athletes, and it'll continue to do that, but I will still compete when it's necessary or when I feel the need to, but obviously being safe along the way too as well.
Absolutely. Who are your current athletes?
Right now I have Robisi Ramirez. We're about to start camp. He's a 2-time gold medalist, and we're looking to get the WBO title.
Nice.
So that's one that's coming up. As far as, like I said, I have NFL athletes that just got back into to mini camp. So we're looking for some good news from them. You know, I'm looking to actually work with some judo Olympians too as well. Just got done with a couple of junior Olympic athletes too. Timberland is another one of my guys. And I'm really selective now with with who I'm working with, and then on top of that, I coach coaches too now.
Right, because they need the mindset for you to take them on, because you could tell them all this stuff, and if they don't actually do it,
Yeah. It's. I've worked with well over 200 professional athletes and fighters in the UFC, NFL, MLB, but the thing is that they have to want it, and I'm going to give them everything that I can, So if they're not ready and tapped in, then it's just pointless for us to go further. Another thing now is I'm doing a lot more seminars and things of that nature, so that's kind of taking up a lot of my time as well.
Yeah, you got the pod too, right?
Yep. Podcast, YouTube channel.
Absolutely. You were talking about breath work earlier, which surprised me. I don't see any coaches teaching breath work.
Man, for us, it's important, not only from a performance standpoint, but from a recoverability standpoint. A lot of these guys are training multiple times throughout the day. So it's not what you can do, it's what you can recover from. So what I want to do is I want to enhance their ability to recover as fast as possible, and bringing down that stressful environment by utilizing the breath. We do a form of box breathing, which is a parasympathetic breathing protocol that you can do. This is something that I will do in between sessions so that they can bring down their stress levels, increase readiness, and perform at their best. The biggest thing for me is that once they get into camp, or once they're, let's say, close to the season, the goal is to make sure that they're able to do their sport. So I have to be able to get them recovered enough from the training session to do that. Yeah, so we'll utilize breathwork protocols, we'll utilize parasympathetic breathing, material, stuff like that. I'll have them lay 90-90, you can see it in some of my videos, but they'll lay on the ground, feet up, elevated, so that they get 360 degrees of expansion through the rib cage, through the lumbar spine, creating that diaphragmatic breathing mechanism so that it can bring down their stress levels in a lot of ways. And that usually helps to bring down heart rate, increases their recovery rate, and then when, let's say, for instance, in between rounds in a fight, the goal is to bring down the heart rate as fast as possible.
Really?
Yeah, because that allows them to be ready to go again when the bell rings.
I didn't even think about that.
So that's a big indicator for me to see how ready they are. So my goal is, once we get closer to the fight, I want to see if they can bring down their heart rate at least 30% from where they were at. Usually it's around 172, 175 beats per minute if you're really pushing it. And then the goal is to get them down to about 130 if we can.
Wow. And in what time frame? Just in between the rounds?
A minute.
Holy crap. That's a quick decrease.
Ioana Jacek and Dustin Poirier had the fastest recoverability time.
Really?
Yeah. They were. It would drop down like a countdown.
Wow. So they had really good mental
resilience and aerobic capacity, I would say. Primarily because they're able to take in that oxygen and bring down their heart rate, and they're efficient with their breathing, and they're efficient with their movement. So, Dustin can go off camp and pretty much just maintain throughout his off camp. Right. And what I mean by that is if he's back home, he may be able to do some type of grappling or something like that, but he's not in camp. He's not really pushing it.
Right.
But because he's so efficient, he can primarily get off the couch and spar 12 rounds, because when he goes in there, he knows how to manage his output. And you see that with a lot of elite guys. Now, if you can double that up with a great aerobic base, right, increasing their ability to take in oxygen and utilize it, and then from there have the efficiency from a technical standpoint, you become unstoppable. Right. So all young fighters out there, look to gain the skill set necessary for you to have, the ability to be second nature in there, right? To make it almost to be routine-like. If somebody's going to shoot on you, you know how to get your hips in, dig for underhooks, get out, create distance or separation, and then rain your shots. But on top of that, be able to calm your body down in between rounds. And you have to have a great aerobic base. You need to increase your aerobic capacity. And then you also need to buffer out lactate. So you need to get into these zones where you're pushing very hard and your ability to recover in between those rounds are super efficient.
Right.
And, that's where you see those guys that like a Colby Covington or a Dustin Poirier that have that ability to go for 5 rounds easily.
But at the same time, you don't want to overtrain, right?
No, that's why periodization and programming appropriately is important, right? So like having the understanding of the athlete, having a proper assessment protocol, knowing where their limiters are from a bioenergetics demand standpoint, and then also looking at what the demands are going to be called upon inside the fight. Are they fighting 3x3s, or are they fighting 3x5s, 5x5s, whatever?
Right.
And then the opponent. What is the opponent going to give you, right? Is the opponent a grappler? Are they a striker? What are some of the things that you're going to have to combat when you get in there? And so that goes along the lines with the preparation, along with the skills and technical training.
Right.
And they have to be cohesive. Things have to mold together. And that's why you have to have proper communication with all coaches, especially in MMA.
Yeah, there's a ton of coaches, right?
Yeah, but in any sport, right? You got your physical prep coach, you got your athletic trainer, you got your skills coach, and you got the head coach.
Right.
And if all these guys aren't communicating appropriately, then everybody's going to do their own thing, and then you're throwing the athlete in so many different directions, and they don't get better at all. They end up hurting themselves, actually.
Right. Have you had any of your clients fight against Sean Strickland?
No. No, but Sean is a perfect example of being efficient. Right. He doesn't get tired because he just stays in his structure. Right. He doesn't deviate from this game plan. And it may be boring to some people, but he's obviously being efficient and successful in what he does.
Right. Well, he spars nonstop too.
Yeah.
And people say he doesn't hold back sparring. So
he doesn't. I've seen videos.
Dude, did you see that drama with him and Goggins?
I did, man.
That probably hurt you because you like both of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. He said he apologized.
Who did?
Strickland apologized.
Oh, he apologized?
Yeah, he said, all right, I'm sorry.
I never would have expected that.
Yeah, this was recent. So he said he apologized, which is like, you kind of have to, man. It's Goggins.
It's Goggins.
You know what I mean?
That's like, the GOAT of...
And he's not a fighter. Goggins is not a fighter. He's a fighter mentality, for sure, but he's not a cage fighter.
Right.
He's not a UFC fighter. You can't challenge that, And the thing that you cannot say that he's soft, that he's an individual that doesn't look to go through some difficult situations. But at the end of the day, he's also I think he's in his 50s now, right?
Goggins, he's up there, man.
So, I mean, that plays a role. And he's never fought before in his life.
Yeah. These ultra marathons, man. I'm recently learning that running too much is not good for you, though.
I mean, in anything in excess can be bad. It can be detrimental, right? I just did a 51-mile ruck walk.
Jeez.
I got put in the hospital for it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was supposed to do 150 miles.
Dude.
So I had 60 pounds on my back, and my goal, I was raising money for the military. My goal was to finish 150 miles, and it got to a point where mentally I was still there. Like, I'm not gonna stop. But physically, I had holes in my feet. I had, toenails were gone, and I developed rhabdo.
What's that?
Rhabdomyolysis. Basically, it's proteins and enzymes that go into the blood after too much muscle. Let's say, you know how you work out, right?
Yeah.
And you damage the muscle, right? You split the muscle apart, right? And it allows it to grow. But if you do it too much, it becomes detrimental, and you can actually have kidney failure.
Holy crap.
So I was in the process of getting to kidney failure.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So that breakdown was so severe and so drawn out for a long duration of time that at that point they ran some tests and they said, listen, your creatine kinase levels are way above where they normally need to be. Let's say, okay, so mine was at 10,000.
Your creatine?
Yeah, creatine kinase. Right?
Got it.
And they normally should be around 100 to
Holy
150.
crap. So you were, what is that, 10 times?
Yeah.
Or 100 times higher?
Pretty much. And so I go, okay, well, they had to admit me. And at that point, I could have said, okay, listen, I'm going to keep going and potentially make it worse. Obviously, that would be stupid of me, right? Yeah. I start thinking about long-term, about, okay, if I go deeper into rhabdo, then I cannot do the things that I need to do after this for a long time, years. So I started thinking long-term. And that's when I decided, okay, we're going to cut it now, but we'll learn from this and we'll do it again. I'll probably do it again in December.
Wow. So you were physically ready, but something just happened.
Physically ready. I stepped in a big, like a gigantic puddle, which was like ankle, like shin deep pretty much.
Yeah.
That caused a bunch of blisters to occur, right? We didn't have a checkpoint, and we were doing this all on our own. This wasn't like mapped out or anything.
Oh, got it.
It was mapped out on our own, but we didn't have like anybody
You were solo.
there. Yeah, I had like 3 guys with me, basically 4 guys total. But yeah, it wasn't like organized. It was us just doing it. And my checkpoint wasn't until probably the next 20 miles. So I ended up getting all these blisters on my feet, hot spots on the bottom of my sole of my feet. And what ended up happening was my feet started to split apart.
Jeez.
So it felt like I was walking on broken glass.
Holy crap.
This happened in mile 10. So by mile 25, my feet were completely wrecked.
With 60 pounds in your bag too.
Yeah, that was the biggest issue. So I mean, now we know, okay, we're gonna have several different shoes. I'm gonna have boots. I'm gonna have 10 pairs of socks. I had 6 pairs of socks, and I sweated out of those because we're in the, how it is, Miami heat.
Yeah.
We're in the humidity, so it didn't matter. And you learn from that process, though. You learn from the pain.
Wow.
And so I'll adapt and go from there.
Nice, dude. Have you done like a marathon or like an Ironman or anything? So
the next thing I want to do is just a marathon. I run pretty consistently, so I'll do 10, 12 miles.
Yeah.
But I'll run consistently, and then I want to do a marathon, and then I want to do an ultra after that.
That's 52 miles, or?
It's anywhere above 50 miles. Okay. Yeah. So I do want to do the 100 and the 150, and then eventually do the Cocodona 250.
Jeez. And what's compelling you to take it to this level?
Because I need to push myself mentally. Physically as well, but more so, I don't have a void that I could fill like how I did when I was fighting, other than what I do here with the ultras. Putting yourself in the position to grow and evolve. And some may say that's stupid, whatever. But if you're an athlete and you've been an athlete all your life and you stop, and even though like I'm coaching and it fulfills me from that perspective as a professional, I still have this void that needs to be filled when it comes down to going after something that I think is bigger than me and pushing myself beyond what I feel that I can do.
Yeah.
And every time you get closer to that edge, you gain more strength. So improving that through pain is important.
I love that, man, because you're already top 1% athlete and you're still finding levels to reach.
You can always get better. There's always a way to improve. There's always a way to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Whether I'm rock climbing or, doing, these deep dives, doing underwater training now.
You're doing deep dives?
Yeah.
How deep we talking?
I'm trying to get down there, man. I'm trying to get there. It's tough. That tough.
Submarine thing didn't scare you?
Yeah. So the free diving thing is something, my wife hates this, man, but it's something that I feel like because I do not like not being in control.
Yeah.
You know, and so claustrophobia and like the dive reflex and all that, that pushes my mind beyond anything other than a training in the weight room. You know, this is way difficult, way more difficult than anything that I could ever imagine, and that's why I want to do it. See what I'm saying? So it's important for me to get to that position and always try to push the pace because of the fact that I'll feel alive when I do that.
That's
awesome.
Are those dives with an oxygen tank, or is it without that?
Nope, just off breath hold.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing. And on top of that, it helps me to increase my lung capacity, right? From a health perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're pushing that intense, it isn't healthy, but it's a performance thing at that point. And from a health perspective, you want to talk about mental health, definitely. Physiologically, maybe not so much.
How long can you hold your breath right now?
I've been able to hold for 5 minutes.
Damn.
Yeah, for 5.
That's impressive.
Off one breath hold.
Yeah, I'm up to 3 because of Wim Hof, but I heard there's some like deep meditations you could get into with it, and
you just got to calm the body down.
You could hold it for like 7-8 minutes if you do it right.
I did a 2.5 with air out, so on the exhale.
Holy crap.
2.5. But that was laying down, on my back.
Dude,
yeah,
that's insane, man. There's some deep stuff you could do with breath work.
For sure, yeah.
I've heard of people hallucinating.
Oh man, it's crazy. You can get into that full euphoric state, but it's I mean, for me, I've never done it. I don't know if you have done it, like ayahuasca or anything like that.
I'm a little scared, to be honest.
For sure. I mean, but you can get into a very deep meditative state through the breath, through those breath holds, like you've done Wim Hof before, So these are the things that are going to make you just a better person and better human being, and then on top of that, it allows you to really push the envelope, because let's face it, it's not so much that you don't have oxygen, it's how bad can you cope with air hunger, and how much can you cope with that CO2 buildup. And from there, you become, again, a stronger, more adapted individual.
Wow. Yeah, when you put it that way, it's almost like a mental test.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I'm claustrophobic to a degree, and I think like that stuff right there, if you find a weakness and that's your limiter, go after it.
Really? We were just in an elevator with like 7 people. I didn't notice.
I was all right. I was right there. Yeah, it's the tunnels. And I got to crawl. I was like, I trained a couple of firefighters, and they have to go through these crawling tests.
Yeah.
Where they go through the tunnel. And it's pitch black, and they got to go all the way through.
Jeez.
And I'm like, damn, that's tough, man. Because you can barely move in there.
Yeah.
Inchworming through.
You ever watch those cave crawling videos?
Yeah. It's wild, man. It's wild.
What? You watch that to get over your fear?
Yeah. I'm like,
That's funny. Those make me itch, dude.
Dude, it's so bad. Like, I'm just like, I'm feeling for them. And you know what? At that point, when they're like doing those, in those caves and they're doing all that stuff in the mines and stuff, and I'm like, these guys have no problem with that.
They like it.
It's no problem, because they get stimulated enough to where it's just second nature.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a fear before, it's not anymore. It's like fighting in a cage. You get to a point where it's like, okay, you're definitely nervous about winning and losing, but it's not. It's just another day in the park. It's like another day at work.
Yeah, second nature. Yeah. No, I was scared of podcasting at first.
Public speaking, same thing. You just get accustomed to it, and you're always gonna have some nerves. It's always gonna be, okay, am I gonna do good? Am I gonna do bad? Whatever. But it becomes lessened, than the first time.
And that's where the growth is too. Like, look at this. Like, I was a huge introvert nerd growing up, and now this is like a huge thing.
Exactly. I can see it. And that's something that allowed you to grow as an individual, and now you're stronger from it. You see what I'm saying? And that's why you got to keep doing it. You can't stop. You know? And I think that people get soft when they stop doing things that are challenging.
Yeah, when athletes retire,
and you start to see that. You start to get comfortable. It's like that Rocky quote where they started to get like, okay, you got civilized, Rock. You stop wanting to train, and you start getting the money, and then and the same thing with Conor McGregor. You look at him now. He's partying it up. He's by far one of the most successful fighters ever. Financially, absolutely. Yeah, from that perspective. Like, he's put the UFC on the map. He's done a lot for the sport, but you could tell he's not all in it the way he was when he was coming up.
100%,
obviously, you can't be at that point. So it's hard. It's hard to get up and train when you're that successful.
Yeah, it's a fine balance. That's why guys like John Jones are so impressive, because they're still undefeated, even with all the money and stuff.
just genetically gifted in one way, and then also he puts in the work, you know, and then that's where you see true greatness at its best. For that, it's how long you can sustain that greatness is really what like kind of solidifies who you are, you know, and how well you can keep pushing the pace. And even with the guys that are highly skillful and talented, like look at Michael Jordan, look at Kobe Bryant, look at all these guys that like kind of still wanted to get better no matter how much success they've had. And they were the first in the weight room. They were the first in the gym, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The last to leave, cussing out their teammates. That's because they're the best, and they were the greatest, and they're going to be the greatest.
Absolutely. Phil, it's been awesome, man. Where can people find your gym, find your show, and find out what you're up to?
All the social media stuff is Daru Strong, Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff. I guess X now, and then YouTube too as well. Phil Daru Strong.
Boom. We'll link below. Thanks for coming on, man.
My brother.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.